Gaza. Right, let's get the thoughts of our guest in the studio today, commentator Sam Armstrong. Good morning to you once again.
Good morning.
It's quite a busy day. I always say such a busy news day. It's always a busy news day. Let's talk about Richy Sunak's speech. Now, we're not taking it live. For those who are watching, I think we're probably going to be able to get a little box where we can show it for those who are seeing things on YouTube and elsewhere. But I tend not to take politicians' speeches live, largely because most of them aren't very interesting speakers. I'm sorry, unless it's a big short emergency speech on some major new event, then I don't want to take it live. But in terms of what he's saying, almost every aspect of our lives will change over the next 5 years. Do you agree with him? He's right on that?
Well, look, there's no doubt we've got some massive technological innovations right around the corner. Look, I think by 2030 we're going to have self-driving cars on the road. You know,
do you reckon?
I really do. I really do.
I can't see it all changing that soon.
The tech is there. There are certain things like lorry driving and taxis for whom you can basically make the business case for it now. If the tech is basically there, if the regulation was there, you could do it tomorrow. I can see that happening. But look, AI is going to change things. There's massive change. And some of that's good, right? And some of it is really bad. And I'm pretty scared about AI. I am in that camp where I think that's going to be weird.
And the genie's out the hat now.
Genie's out the hat.
Genie's out the hat. Is that no? Is it out the lamp?
That's right.
That's the one. I'm thinking that metaphor did not sound right.
You rub the lamp, you get the 3 wishes. But the ketchup's out of the bottle and you can't put it back in.
The worms are out of the can. I don't know. Let's keep going. But anyway,
yes. Yeah.
No, but that's the thing. But look, this is the same with all technology, though, isn't it? To a certain extent, you know, the Luddites. Oh, you know, machines for weaving. I mean, you know, printing press and things. We can harness these things for good over evil. The trouble is, they will probably be harnessed for evil first, and that's the distorted democratic elections. These horrible sort of, you know, revenge porn and things like that. But the biggest worry, I mean, I have that when I look at things online. When someone goes, "Oh, this extraordinary comment from this person," I was like, "Has someone reputable checked this out first? Do I know that this isn't AI?"
Yeah, well, look, exactly. And there were lots of people in creative jobs, you know, that have been lured into the cities, having done media studies at some of our woke universities. They spend all their life writing nonsense that in a couple of years' time, I think actually they may be going before the lorry drivers go or the taxi drivers go. And in their case, well, thank goodness for that, because their considerable talents with their degrees from the University of West Salford will be put to better use.
Be careful here. I mean, in terms of who do you trust most to deal with, you know, the threats posed to us, security threats, I mean, Russia and China, again, we know they're using AI. God, my God. I mean, Hamas, by the way, we know how much they're using social media, because we've got the likes of Gary Lineker talking about the Hamas thing, meaning the massacre of 1,200 people in Israel on October the 7th. But, you know, because he talks about how he cries often when he sees images of children in Gaza. There are horrific images of horrific things happening to innocent civilians, and Hamas put these out. Okay, they deliberately do that. They are manipulating people. Now, we should be aware of the horrors of war, and actually we in the West try to protect, the media counter-protects. We don't show the most gruesome images. Those images are on social media, and I mean, people send them to me. I think what, you think I don't know what happens to children when they're bombed and they die? It's horrific. But the key thing here is, it's just like, is you feeling sad about this? Is that a reason for that war to end? Because this happens in all wars. All wars are horrific. Civilians die in all wars, including children. The question is whether a war is justified or not. And there seems to be this whole, we want peace. We've got the Labour Party now pushing for this. You know, full ceasefire. They don't want any more weapons to go to Israel if the Rafah offensive goes ahead. Joe Biden, who's the most significant person in this, talking about, you know, ending weapons for Israel if they go into Rafah. And yet, what's the point? What's the point of Israel going into Gaza if they're going to leave Hamas sitting there in their tunnels with their hostages in Rafah?
And of course, the biggest victims of Hamas's continued capacity to run a terrorist entity out of what could be a functioning country are the residents of Gaza. These are the big losers. Not only is there rampant corruption, not only is there grotesque abuses, and not only is the economy being, much like the Russian economy, just abused and used in order to fund a war, but actually, when Hamas inevitably strike Israel once again, which they would do, it's in their constitution, they've promised to do it, let's take them at their word on it, Who will the victims be? The Gazan people want more. If you're going to, lance a boil, if you're going to surgically remove, it's a little bit like going in for surgery for cancer and then somebody saying, oh, well, we went in and we took out one half, but we left in another half because you'd been in the operating theatre for a little bit too long. It's the wrong approach. It's not going to work. It's
and
not
no other country would be expected to do that. No other country. When America, and by the way, backed by pretty much the whole of the Western world, went into Afghanistan post 9/11 because the Taliban leaders of Afghanistan at that time and now once again were harbouring Al-Qaeda and allowing them have training camps where they were allowed to plan that terror attack on America. It was completely accepted they would stay there until the job was done. Well, they didn't do that good a job in the end, but went in there for years. Israel, they only get a few months. But we didn't see pictures every day of children who were bombed in Afghanistan. We did not see those pictures every day. Now, maybe we should see pictures. The trouble is, authoritarian governments and terrorists don't care about the deaths of innocents. It doesn't bother them at all. They're quite happy to see tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions die. They don't care. So how on earth are democratic government countries, how are we supposed to stand up to these authoritarian governments and also terrorist groups if our population are going to go, oh, someone died? Yeah, war's horrible. That's why you don't go to war unless you really have to. But sometimes, as in Israel's case, you really have to.
Yeah, and by the way, look, I have enormous faith in the British and American armed forces, but the kind of conflict that Israel is conducting, which is a counter-terrorism, urban warfare, is basically the hardest type to avoid civilian casualties. They are delivering results in terms of killing the ratio of terrorists killed to civilians, keeping that as low as possible.
Which it is, and it is low compared to most wars. That's what people don't accept.
Including the results that we delivered in Afghanistan and Iraq. They have a better ratio. One death of a civilian is one too many, but they are doing a better job than we ever did, yet they are being held to a standard divorced from all reality.
Indeed, I absolutely couldn't agree with you more. Let's talk about, we talk about Gary Lineker and the Hamas thing. I mean, just absolutely blows my mind that his language on that. That was in a podcast interview. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But let's talk about what's going on in the UK. The NHS, big issue in the NHS in terms of shortage of doctors and nurses. Huge amounts of money going into the NHS and yet long waiting lists. Well, you can't have a waiting list when you're having a baby. You're having a baby when you're having your baby. And a new report out this morning has shown an incredible postcode lottery of care for maternity care, and also that in some units, basically, good care is the exception, not the norm. There is no doubt at all. I mean, women go through horrific circumstances in many of their labours, not having interventions soon enough, staff not trained, misreading things. At the end of the day, you've got two lives at risk at this point. People kind of forget this whole... I remember I went to antenatal classes and it was like, what's your birthing experience? What do you want it to be like? I went, I want to feel no pain. I want my child and me to come out alive and healthy with as little pain as possible. That's it. I wrote epidural in 96 point across the whole page you were supposed to fill out. Like, I don't want candles, don't want music, I'm not worried about a snap. I just want everyone to come out. It's a medical procedure. But there is still this thing. So many people, I see it all over Twitter. Oh, we shouldn't have medicalised birth. Yeah, let's just leave women to die routinely in childbirth and babies to die routinely in childbirth by not medicalising it. You need to medicalise it more, I would say.
Yeah, look, you only need to go speak to any farmer around the country that sees a level of lambs, sheep, cows, calves that die in childbirth, totally natural, left out to do it in the field, to know that actually a medical setting is a pretty good idea for something like that. But look, here's the thing. We have seen scandal after scandal after scandal in the NHS, and midwifery and maternity units are dramatically overrepresented. There is something going dangerously wrong. To me, at least, there is an argument. It's not necessarily the most popular argument, but this kind of split profession between doctors and midwives that think that at times that actually they can supplant or displace doctors is a common factor in many of these scandals.
Midwife-led units, I think women are crazy good. In no disrespect to midwives, I've got friends who are midwives, but genuinely, it's that, your doctors have gone through a lot more training and they're able to do more things when things go wrong. I don't agree with having a home birth. It's my job to make sure my child is alive at the end of it, and being in an operating theatre, if that's what's necessary and nearby, seems to me to be the most sensible thing to do, if you ask me. But yeah, it does seem that the thing that I find really bizarre is that we've had report after report. We've had, NHS managers quite happily basically not doing anything when a Lucy Letby, was killing babies in a neonatal unit. We've had endless maternity unit scandals. We've had the NHS blood scandal that's going to be reported on the 20th of May. But they knew. The people running that absolutely knew they were giving contaminated blood to innocent people who subsequently died or had their lives completely changed by that, by getting hepatitis and HIV. We've had, the Bristol Heart Cardiology Centre. We've had scandals over that. We've had Mid Staffordshire. I can't even name all the scandals that we have had. But nevertheless, the NHS, envy of the world. How many times are we going to have a scandal in the NHS where you nearly always see incompetence, cover up, and it goes on for years, and deaths and injuries, a huge cost in terms of compensation as well, and people are still going to say NHS best in the world. Every single person who works in the NHS is a verifiable saint. They're a saint.
Yeah, including the veritable army of highly paid managers that have spent no time whatsoever in clinical training, run the entire operation, frequently make the experience a misery for patients, and are accountable to absolutely nobody. And they are a common feature in all of these scandals. And actually, one of the realities of the NHS is, look, they've been given all this money. There aren't actually all that many more doctors and nurses. Why? Because it takes a long time to train them. The government didn't do a good enough job 10, 15, 20 years ago, putting enough medical students through, putting enough nurses
They deliberately limited the number. We'll train everyone from China and India. We just won't train our own people, even if they've got 4 grade A stars.
So where does the money go now? Where can you throw money at the NHS quickly? More and more managers that can help you, not one bit.
Yeah,
it's a scandal.
It really is, isn't it? There's also a big issue with the NHS, of course, in terms of the impact of obesity. We all talked recently about the impact of smoking. I very much changed my mind on this book. I was very nanny state before, and I'm much less so. And I see, like, the Times today, everything's always about obesity, the sick note culture. But they're obsessed with banning things. If it ban adverts, ban this kind of food, ban sugar in this and whatever in that. And there's an awful lot on the Labour side who are very much like that. Quite far too many on the Tory side, I would say. But we do have an obesity issue, and there's an issue here where a later study shows that if you are obese, you're twice as likely to take time off work sick than if you're of a healthy weight. Well, frankly, what a shocker, everybody. What a shocker. But it's basically contributing to our sick note culture and also pressure on the NHS, because basically if you're obese, your chances of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, pretty much every treatment, hip operations, knee operations, loads of those are down to people being overweight. If they weren't overweight, they wouldn't need the operation. There is a huge cost to everyone else. We're the ones paying for it, from people people choosing, because it is a choice to be obese. What is the solution, Sam?
Well, and let's not forget, of course, the early days of the COVID pandemic, when they kept saying, oh, it's young people too. Yeah, these young people that were dying of COVID, not exclusively, but largely were large.
Very large, needing sort of 6 people to move them over in the bed.
They had made conscious choices for years to ignore all the NHS guidance you could find on what to eat, and now we were being asked, at threat of imprisonment, to follow NHS guidance in order to protect them. Here's my view. I'm not a fan of banning things unless absolutely necessary. I am a fan of choices, OK? If you choose to ignore the guidelines, ignore the rules, ignore basic health advice at such a level that you balloon up until you are 40 stone, that's fine. Knock yourself out. But do not ask me to pay you a penny in statutory sick pay, disability benefits, universal credit, NHS charges for you to go along to hypnotherapy classes in order to be told while you're under the hypnosis that if you eat less you'll be happier. No, right? You've made your bed. It's a big bed. Now lie in it.
It's a reinforced big bed. Now lie in it. Sam Armstrong, thank you for that.